Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Look, I was going to record this as part 2 of my last upload about the phenomena of HSMCM, hyper scrutiny of machismo confused for masculinity. I was going to tell you that a Caucasian Muslim named Omar Lee in 2005 and 2006 said that sisters, without specifying their religion, offered him free fornication because they wanted babies with light eyes, lighter skin, and looser hair. In 2005 and 2006, we'd have argued with him about this being an actual pattern because we all knew that sisters didn't want Wyatt men like that. Well, fast forward to 2014, and we still wouldn't have believed that so easily. Now in 2022, we know that sisters are demanding that we be idness and letting Wyatt guys be even so much as milquetoast by their own standards. They're actually letting Wyatt men off the hook for not being the same things for which they not only don't pick us, but for which they actually peg us as marks and targets for whichever treatment they'd never accept from us. I have to add more to it than that. It turns out in the end, I got to go deeper when I recorded this. When I was a kid, I would see certain behaviors as serving no other purpose but to tick someone else off. I mean, if a hungry kid steals your change to go to the snack machine because he's hungry and doesn't have the change, then hatred for you is not the assumption as the reason. But now you take a classmate of yours hiding your homework from you just so that you can't turn it in to the teacher. And this is the day after your parents warned you that you get an ass whooping the next time you don't do your homework. Then you know that kid is doing it out of malice. He just wants to see you get a beating. Well, I would see malice in behaviors on occasion, and frankly, I was told that I needed to chill out with these interpretations. When you're a little light bright, you're not supposed to be analytical about things because that's the stereotype anyway, and you noticing things as you being hyper analytical. Now, this is where it gets kind of funny because we talked about color discrimination before, and the same intelligence in someone with a higher melanin count would have been appreciated, but then they would have been mistreated in other ways. And of course, this is because of the hyenocracy. This is not because of the adult males around. So after a while, there was really no other way I could explain a lot of women's behavior and choices in men, especially after 1990, and I began to assume that there were just motives I was too young to understand. So I would pay attention as I lived longer. Now that has to do with why I never got back to you, CJ, about a debate, Clarence Jr., I never got back to you because not only are we coming up on midterms, but I've also learned something just a few years ago. A lot of what I know now and can articulate are things that I suspected a long time ago, but I learned and confirmed a few years ago, and I therefore don't expect you to believe them because I didn't know them at your age. I suspected them, but didn't know them. But what I'm going to say may substantiate my platform and why I'm going to insist on telling black men, stop in the West trying to win over black women. Western black women, I mean. Pablo Freshcobar, shout out to him, went live, and this stream is entitled, Why the Alpha Beta Application to Humans is Invalidated by Science - Tough Talk TV Response. In that stream, DT Crypto, shout out to him too, said in the chat that sisters have contempt as a part of their sexual selection. This is about an hour and 57 minutes in, I think. Now, this is beyond just looking for good men for themselves or having standards. That's not contempt. Contempt is something else, and this explains a lot of what we see in sisters' attitudes. Walaikum salam. When it's not even beneficial to them, they hold on to certain things just for their inconvenience to us. And Crimson Q also pointed this out. Shout out to her too. Assalamu alaikum, Ms. Davis. Now, these are two others, one a lady herself, that see this pattern. So We got DT Crypto, Crimson Cure, and me. Well, Cortez Smith told me in my own comment section, everything they do is based on being defiant towards BM because that's what feminism taught them. Now we're 3 others, 4 in total. He later told me, Gamechanger once said the reason that the fat is because we don't like it and they don't like us. So now we're at 5. I replied to Cortez that this sounds hyperbolic, but it explains what nothing else will. And he wrote back to me, have you noticed how every time we make fun of something and show that we don't like it, weave, heavy makeup, batwing eyelashes, etc., the more they do it? Me and other BM on YouTube even noticed that the bonnet wearing in public increased after Monique criticized young B-Dub about wearing them. Close quote. Look, I was going to come on here and tell you the men that are pro-black that you can't abandon sisters because they've already abandoned you. Turns out I have to tell you even more than that. I have to tell you that in fact hostility and contempt and hatred have shaped not only how they've related or not related to you intimately, but how they've even raised you. See, if they got a contempt for you because you're a BM, do you think that doesn't come out in how they raise you? Think of this, when you were in trouble with moms as a boy, were you corrected and humbled or were you emasculated? Now, different ones of you are going to give different answers. Many of you have good moms, and I'm glad you did, because I got an excellent mom who didn't have a policy of emasculating my brother or me. She did it to me once and never repeated that same error. See, other moms used to love to say to their sons, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out of it. And the thing is, I cannot recall ever hearing a black mom say this to a daughter in film or in real life, now that I think of it. I hope it's just my memory and not a pattern in real life, but whichever one it is, hatred has defined our relationship with sisters. My kids and I have been lucky with our moms, but I see what you men have had to suffer when you tell me in my comments or even when somebody records it and posts it. Thing is, you ever notice how we as a people brag about how seriously we discipline our kids as opposed to the liberal, no corporal punishment wives whose kids can do shade your mitt and get away with it? I mean, you know, they'll sit up and say, we don't believe in hitting our kids for any reason. Okay, but all right, yeah. And they're the worst people to ever rule the world. But you notice how we're on the opposite end? Who's really doing all this bragging about the opposite extreme? When you hear a male shine brag, it's usually about how disciplined he was and how harshly he was punished. We're more likely to brag about how little crap we take off of other adults. When you hear Boom Chic and Bon Quisha and Sophista Ratchet Sapphire, she's bragging about how harshly she got punished and how harshly she disciplines her own, even when it's more than warranted, be it the son or daughter. Now, I do agree that some of it is trauma, but I accept that excuse only to the same extent that we get to use the same excuse successfully. Oh, wait, that's right. We're supposed to just alpha our way through any trauma. My bad. Well, then that means I'm not accepting that excuse. However, in that trauma that I'm admitting does at least exist is anything in between a contempt to a hatred for us. And this is why in the West, the pro-blackest thing you can do is to abandon the pro-her stances that are associated with it. See, I said that she has abandoned you, and I was wrong. She hasn't abandoned you. She has based her behavior on contempt for you, or worse, hatred. You would wish by comparison that she abandoned you. She's been deceiving and sabotaging you in many cases, especially in terms of intimacy and coupling and family and all that. They've collectively gone out of their way to do it. Even Cola Booth. Yeah, you can look her up because that's how famous she's not. Who may be lying, said she only wanted that actor Jimon Hunsu just to leave Kimora Simmons, not for herself. Now this guy is an actor. A and B less. She's a G or F list celebrity at best, writing books, more infamous than famous, and yet she brags about having an affair with him, which is even worse if she's lying, just to break him up from Kimora Simmons, who's now going through her own mess, and it was probably for not being black enough. So you see, here's the funny thing. Cola ain't from the States, but she's talking all that Mother Earth Goddess stuff. And she's upheld, honestly. By many of the Effinists, she's upheld. That's a symbol as a heroine. So you've been dealing with a low-key hatred. We've been dealing with a low-key hatred we didn't realize was hatred. You know, it came in the form of occasional contempt and resentment or just attitude, but it's pretty much contempt and hatred and anything in between. That's really what it boils down to. You're not going to be able to put your fist in the air with the same meaning as we've previously been doing that. And even in going back home, which I recommend, you got to be careful as to which part, where, and what the orientations are. Because keep in mind, some of the champions of it have been imported from back home. I wish I had better news than this. Maybe next time I will. In the meantime, thanks for listening. I'm not going to go through the whole outro. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum.